We're at the Corner Brewery in Ypsilanti. It's a once abandoned warehouse that's situated in a residential neighborhood, so it kind of has this off the beaten path kind of charm. It was founded by a husband and wife team, Matt and Rene Greff, who have been pioneers in the craft beer industry for more than 20 years. After sampling the Corner's tap selection, we'll be talking about a novella by Laura Koschitzky called Eden Springs. It's a sensuously written mystery surrounding sex and scandal of a charismatic religious leader who founded a utopian community up in Benton Harbor around the turn of the century in the early 1900s. He convinced his followers that they could live forever. So you can imagine it's a problem when a beautiful young girl is found dead in an orchard. Did I mention it involves sex and scandal? I get a rush out of talking about a good book, and there's little I enjoy more than a good beer. You put the two together, my friend, and you may have just created a brand of happiness. I'm Brian Cox, and this is Books Over Beer, where I get together with a couple of guests, we enjoy a few pints at a local brewery, and we talk about a book we recently read. Come on, I've got a good book. Let's go get a good beer.
I thought we'd start off by talking about the beginning. You started Arbor Brewing Company back in 1995. You guys really were pioneers in an emerging industry. So my question is this. How many people told you you were crazy, and how did you not listen to them?
Everybody told us we were crazy.
And we didn't listen to them because we were in our 20s
Yeah.
and didn't know any better. We should have listened a little more closely.
We knew everything, they knew nothing, so yeah.
So I fell in love with beer while I studied in Germany. Came home, I had a soul-sucking corporate job after college. Saw a book called The Complete Joy of Home Brewing in a store one afternoon. Went back to my office, shut the door, read it cover to cover. Came home and probably declared to Renee that I'm going to be a brewer.
And were you like...
I think I said, that's nice, honey. I mean, it was very,
patronizing.
it was.
Little did you know, right?
Yeah.
Where it would go. I did notice you do have two telephones. They're never on.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
Is that
Very
a choice?
Yes. We think people in pubs should talk to each other and not sit in front of the TV.
Yeah, that was a huge bone of contention when we first opened 21 years ago. Was we're not going to have TVs at the bar. And I got back to people saying this isn't going to work. We're like, we'll put TVs in the game.
They're like, okay, you've got weird beer, you don't let people smoke at the bar, and you don't have TVs. Nobody is ever going to come here.
So one of the things when I was learning a little bit about the Corner that I was surprised to learn was that you have a location in Bangalore, India. Tell me how that came about.
So our partner went to U of M and was a regular at the brew pub. And after he graduated and moved back to India, he decided he wanted to open an Arbor Brewing Company in Bangalore. So he contacted us to see if we would be interested in opening a location. And we said, absolutely not. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. And fortunately for us, he wouldn't take no for an answer. Said, come to India, meet my family, meet my partners, let's talk about it. And we went to India because we love to travel and fell in love with our partner and his family and decided that it was something we had to do.
All right, so let's talk beer. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw out a name of one of your beers, and what I want you to do is tell me the origin of the name and maybe a little bit about what makes that beer distinctive. Okay? So why don't we start with one of my favorites, the Bollywood Blonde.
So Bollywood Blonde actually used to be called Brasserie Blonde. And what we discovered, I think you already know what we discovered based on your reaction,
Yes.
which is that when Americans see brasserie, they read it as brazier.
Brazier.
And so we were having problems getting that beer on shelves in some of our stores because they weren't comfortable with that name. And so we said, all right, we gotta scrap this. And we had just opened the place in India and decided that it would be fun to have that connection. So we call it Bollywood Blonde.
What about the Fat Abbot?
Fat Abbott is
P-H-A-T.
P-H-A-T. Again, showing our age. That was cool once upon a time. That beer style is an Abbey ale. And obviously, Abbots run Abbeys. And fat with a PH just sounded kind of fun at the time, and so we have a Fat Abbey Ale.
Yeah, and it's very tasty.
Yeah.
I really like that one, actually. Tell me about Mr. Delicious.
I am Mr. Delicious. It was a joke nickname I had in high school, and a friend of ours who owns a bar in Kalamazoo, when he found this out, thought it was the funniest thing he's ever heard, and said, "You've got to make a beer called Mr. Delicious."
And he actually said, if you don't make it, I'm going to call Joe Short and ask him to. And then we said, all right, that's it. We're making this beer.
That's great. That's wonderful. So one of the things that I know is important to you guys is sustainability and environmental stewardship. And I know you've put an enormous amount of time and money into being sustainable. Can you talk to me a little bit about the advantages and why it's a priority for you?
We had a student group from the School of Natural Resources at the University of Michigan do a feasibility study. They spent a year as their graduate program studying all of the ways we could potentially be more sustainable in the brewery. And we thought there's no way we're going to be able to implement any of their recommendations. It's too expensive, we're too small in business. But they really put together an amazing package, and they did such a thorough job that we were able to take their findings right to our bank and get a loan to do the project. And in the first year alone, we increased our beer production 25%, and our utility bills went down 25%.
Well, thanks so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it. This is Brian Cox with Books Over Beer. I've got a good beer. Let's go talk about a good book.